Taehyung will be at Vogue Japan. He recently updated his Instagram story and shared a Vogue Japan reel that caught a lot of attention. The post read, "V is on Vogue World, Hollywood's special digital cover." They also announced that this global event will be streamed live on October 27th at 10 a.m. on Vogue Japan's official website. On the magazine's profile, you can find Taehyung's special feature, along with a 30-second digital cover and all the details about Vogue World. There are only a few hours left until he makes history as the first Korean artist and the only K-pop idol to attend Vogue World. The fact that he was personally invited twice by Anna Wintour speaks volumes. She is known for being one of the hardest people to impress, someone with very selective taste, but she was apparently charmed by Taehyung's presence and personality. She invited him back to the Hollywood event, and it shows how much he connected with her, not only because of his appearance, but also because of his personality, his calmness, and that charisma he possesses without even trying. There's something about Taehyung that draws attention even in places where everyone seems to be shining. His way of carrying himself, his way of looking and smiling make people feel something different. He's natural, kind, and transmits a calm energy that's noticeable even in the shortest photos or videos. Many say he seems to melt the ice just by his presence, and that's not an exaggeration. There's something about him that simply feels sincere. All of this seems to be happening at the perfect time. The theme of this year's event, Hollywood, the interaction of film and fashion, fits with what Taehyung stands for. Hollywood will celebrate the connection between film and fashion, highlighting the most inspiring figures in history, and Taehyung completely fits that idea. He has that blend of elegance and naturalness that makes everything he wears or does look like a movie scene. His presence at Vogue Japan not only demonstrates his growth as an artist, but also how he continues to forge paths few have followed. And while many follow him for his image, those who know him a little better know there's much more behind that calm appearance. He's someone who leaves a mark without saying much, and that's precisely what makes his participation in Vogue World so highly anticipated. Seeing him at this event will not only be an important moment for fashion, but also an opportunity to see a new side of him. Every appearance of his has something special, and this will be no exception. The excitement of seeing him share space with figures from the world of film and fashion is enormous, and those who follow him feel that this is just another step on a path that seems tailor-made for him. Lately, many people noticed a detail that didn't go unnoticed. As always, Taehyung has that unique way of letting us see that Jungkook is still very much a part of his life. In one of his most recent Instagram stories, several fans noticed something curious. Taehyung was wearing pajamas identical to the ones he wore when he was sitting on Jungkook's lap on that flight we all remember. The comparison went viral because the resemblance was almost exact. Although it's not confirmed that it's the same one, the coincidence is too clear to ignore. The interesting thing is that these kinds of details aren't new. For some time now, many have noticed that Taehyung often wears clothing or accessories that somehow link him to Jungkook. It may seem like a small thing, but for those who follow them closely, those gestures say much more than they seem. It's as if, without saying anything directly, Taehyung finds ways to remind the world that the connection is still there. And every time he does it, it leaves everyone wondering if it was really a coincidence or if he simply wanted to share a part of what he feels. But that's not all. Every update Taehyung shares seems to have a touch that connects him with Jungkook. Whether it's a song, an item of clothing, or a simple photo, there's always something that suggests he intentionally chooses what he shows. It's not that he's seeking attention, but rather that he seems to do it naturally, as if those small details were part of his everyday life. And although some try to downplay it, the truth is that many feel that behind each post there's a story, or a shared memory between them. Of course, not everyone sees it favorably. Some people criticize these moments, saying that people exaggerate or make things up. But what few can deny is that Taehyung acts according to what he feels. He has never shown himself to care too much about other people's opinions, and that's something many admire. He follows his own path, and when it comes to Jungkook, there always seems to be a very transparent sincerity in his actions. Over time, Taehyung has shown that his way of expressing himself doesn't always require words. He does it with gestures, or with small symbols that only those who observe him closely can notice. And although he never says anything directly, there's one constant in everything he shows: Jungkook is always present, in one way or another. It's as if their bond is so natural that it doesn't need to be explained. Many might think it's just a coincidence, but those who have followed them for years know better. It's a repeating pattern, and no matter the time or distance, it keeps reappearing. Perhaps it's his way of keeping that connection alive, without having to say it with words. And that, for many, is what makes their relationship so special. In the end, no matter how much talk or speculation there is, what has been seen time and time again is that Taehyung doesn't fake how he feels. He doesn't act to please anyone or fuel rumors. He simply follows what his heart tells him, and every little detail he shares seems to remind him of that. Because in the end, everything indicates that Taehyung's heart still belongs to Jungkook, and that is something that, without the need for confirmation, is clearly perceived in each of his actions. This kind of interaction reveals how much their bond has grown. Before, those moments between them were brief, almost shy, as if they appeared from time to time without anyone expecting them. They were moments you had to watch closely to notice. But now, everything feels different. What was once rare now seems part of their routine. There's no effort, no tension of having to hide something. They simply let themselves be. Jungkook and Taehyung no longer try to dissemble, they don't seek to avoid glances or hide gestures. They show themselves as they are, without the distance that once seemed necessary. And they do so with a naturalness that captivates, because every small action, every glance exchanged or subtle touch seems to have a story behind it. For those who have followed them for years, each new interaction feels like further confirmation of what many already suspected. These aren't just scenes or coincidences that happen for no reason. They are small tests, signs that, although simple, speak volumes. There's something about the way they carry themselves that conveys a comfort that can't be faked. There's no longer that nervousness like before, that feeling of being careful with every move. Now it's different, you can tell they enjoy being around each other, that they don't need to justify anything. Of course, not everyone sees it the same way. There are always people who prefer to think people are exaggerating, that everything is out of context, or that it's just theories. They say fans read too much into it or invent meanings where there aren't any. But there's one thing no one can deny, and that's the way Taehyung acts. He's always been like that, direct, sincere, unbothered by what others say. He's never cared much about other people's opinions, and that's part of what makes him so authentic. You don't notice his intention to please, but rather to be himself. And when he's with Jungkook, that attitude becomes even more evident. He doesn't try to be friendlier or more distant. He's simply comfortable. You can see it in his gestures, in how he looks at you without thinking too much, in how he smiles without reaching for the camera. Sometimes, when two people act, it's immediately noticeable. There's something in the way they move, in their tone, in the silences. But when there's real understanding, when two people truly know each other, there's nothing to prepare. They don't need to plan how they're going to behave or decide what to show. Everything flows. That's what happens with Taehyung and Jungkook. They don't get close because they want attention, or because they want to fuel rumors. They get close because they're used to it, because that closeness is part of their way of being together. It's a kind of connection that needs no explanation, and perhaps that's why it's so easy to notice. There's something special about the way they look at each other. It's not a look that seeks approval, it's more of a silent complicity, as if just by looking at each other they know what the other is thinking. It's that kind of gesture that can't be rehearsed. There's also the way they touch each other, without fear, without that stiffness that sometimes occurs when someone is trying to keep up appearances. Between them, there's no invisible boundary that separates the professional from the personal. Everything seems to blend with a naturalness that, far from being uncomfortable, feels sincere. And that, for many, is precisely what makes them so interesting to observe. Every small gesture seems to carry its own weight. A smile that appears for no reason, a shoulder that leans on another, a shared laugh amidst the noise. These are simple things, but when they are repeated over and over again, when they happen with such consistency, they stop seeming like coincidences. They become part of their way of living together. It's as if their bodies respond before their minds, as if there's no longer a need to think about how to act. This habit of seeking each other out, of being close, doesn't seem forced. It's something that's there, and those who have followed them for so long recognize it immediately.